Hello and welcome to the Adventure Geek Radio podcast. My name is Kay.
Hey everyone, it's Barry.
Hey Barry.
Hey Kay, how's it going in New Brunswick?
Oh, pretty good. I
Yeah,
wish I was there with
cool.
you.
Yes, but it's pretty cool that we can do this like this.
It is pretty cool that we can do it this way. Today we're going to be talking about our adventure that we had last year on the Fundy Footpath, which is located in New Brunswick, which is located on the east coast of Canada. And very beautiful spot. But maybe we can let people know why we're actually in different provinces right now. Just a quick little update on that. So it's we're recording this on May 3rd. We're week 8 in this pandemic that we're going through.
Week 8 or week 9, I can't remember.
Yeah, week 8 or 9.
It's all running together.
Yeah. Barry and I are originally from New Brunswick and currently live in Prince Edward Island. And my dad has terminal cancer and obviously needs a lot of care, still living in his apartment at the moment. And I got special permission from his doctor so that I could cross the border and come sit with him for a while. That said, I've rented an apartment while I'm here, and I'm all set up to work. I do work in a contract job that I do during the morning, and then I take care of Dad in the afternoons. And then we have a little free time on our hands here, so figured we'd record a podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we're doing lots of video chatting, eh, Barry?
2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah, at least. We have supper together. We have lunch together.
Yeah. Had our morning coffee.
And our morning coffee. Yeah, that's right. All right, so that's kind of a little update as to what's going on in our lives in the here and now, but we're here today to basically talk about the Fundy Footpath.
The Fundy Footpath.
And the Fundy Footpath is a multi-day hike that Barry introduced me to last year. I'm not so sure if I'm happy about that or not.
I was.
You were happy to introduce me to it.
Yes.
So first of all, I guess maybe what we can do is share a little bit with people what the Fundy Footpath is about. And I just brought up a few websites here that basically have some descriptions of it. And it doesn't appear that the Fundy Footpath itself has its own website. However, there's a few websites out there that feature it. So the Fundy Trailway, which is in New Brunswick, has a page which describes what it is. There's also the Fundy Biosphere website that has a description, and some other places too. So I'm just going to take a second and read, Barry, what the Fundy Biosphere says. Now, they are saying it's 41.4 kilometers long. I believe that that is now longer. Can you correct me on that?
It is. When they did that, I would imagine they haven't updated that since they expanded the trail last year.
Yep.
So it's 61 kilometers now.
Okay, so 61, and that's minus the Fundy National Park part, which we'll talk about later.
No, that's not including the.
That's what I'm, not including the Fundy National Park. Yeah, so what it says here is the footpath was established in 1994. I'll just quickly read the blurb because it's a good description of what it is. It's a coastal hiking trail that stretches from Goose River, which is the western boundary of the Fundy National Park, to Big Salmon River, a popular tourist destination east of the community of St. Martin's. The area is considered by many to be the longest stretch of undeveloped coastline between Florida and Labrador. The Fundy Footpath offers hikers an opportunity to observe some of the last remaining stands of old-growth coastal Acadian forest in the world, as well as spectacular vistas, pristine beaches, unique estuaries, interesting geology, and lots of wildlife. The Fundy Footpath is a remote and challenging hiking trail and should only be attempted by those with suitable physical abilities, which we will talk about, and the proper wilderness equipment. The Fundy Footpath leads hikers to many of the Fundy Biosphere's amazing places, with many more only a few kilometers from the trail. And they go on to say that one could spend weeks exploring the many amazing places within a short distance of the Fundy Footpath. And on it goes. And then the Fundy Trail Parkway webpage. I won't read their whole thing, but one thing that they say that's interesting is the Fundy Footpath was recently listed in the 50 best hikes in the world by Explore magazine. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And on their webpage, they're saying that it's 61 kilometers. Is that what you just said a while ago?
Yep, that's what I said.
So that one's up to date. So 61 kilometers. So guys, that pretty much describes, an overview of what the Fundy Footpath is and what it's all about. Definitely a multi-day hike, and one that I will never forget for the rest of my life. That's for sure. My mind will never forget it, and my knees will certainly never forget it.
I'll probably be never allowed to forget it.
Yeah, exactly. You will never be allowed to forget it. Alrighty. So Barry's voice may not sound quite as clear as mine. He is not speaking directly into our soundboard here that we use. It's called, or the preamp, it's called the Rode Procaster. It's actually really good. And so he's able to connect in through Skype. I have the Procaster connected into the computer, and we're just loading everything up, ready to roll. Both of us have our granny glasses on, ready to read our notes and talk a little bit about the footpath. So Barry, I'm doing all the talking here. You're the one that's done this trail. How many times now we figured out yesterday?
Between 5 and 6. I think the 6th time was with you.
Okay.
And I've done it both ways. I've done it from St. Martin's Way, and I've done it from the Fundy Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done just multiple section days. Like I'd go in and just hike to Sealy Beach or Little Salmon, like from different spots.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite spots, go-to spots, just to go camping.
Yeah. So as far as hiking that trail, there's opportunities to actually section hike it.
Yeah, there is. There's several different sections. I may not know all of them, but like from the Fundy Trailway, like I can get you to Sealy Beach, Cradlebrook, Little Salmon, all from the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
Walton Glens Gorge and all that.
So what we're going to do today, guys, is probably talk a little bit about, little more about what the footpath is all about in the first section of this podcast. And then after that, we're kind of going to go through our day-to-day and what we encountered on the footpath as a couple hiking together. Barry might have his own little side stories which I've heard a few of, so I'll probably get him to talk about them a little bit. And this podcast, I imagine, is probably going to end up being a two-part podcast. We'll decide by the time we're done talking today. Lots to say about the Fundy Footpath, likely a trail that we're going to feature a few times at least on this podcast. We have several people that we would love to have on as guests, especially people that have helped develop the trail, that maintain the trail, and so on. We would like to eventually have them on as guests, and other people that have hiked it and their experiences.
Yep. There's people I know people that's tried to hike it and they've had to come off at certain spots. It's not the easiest trail, but it's one of my favorite trails. It's probably my favorite trail.
Yeah. So as far as difficulty, Barry, we were talking about this yesterday as we were planning out this podcast. It is not for the faint at heart.
Nope. It's at a 5. You got a lot of elevation gain and then a lot of decline change, and then you've got where you're on the edge. You've got nothing beside you.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
A 12-inch walkway.
a very technical trail. I think on paper, they're saying about 10,000 feet of elevation gain. I was looking at our All Trails recording that we had done, and mine was marked in meters, but I did the calculation for feet, and I think it ended up being like 9,500 feet of elevation. So that's, pretty close. It's not a beginner trail. It's not an intermediate trail. It's something that I would probably consider in the advanced trail.
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't want this to be your first trail.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And you definitely need to train.
Yep.
To go on this trail.
And there's people that's running.
Recommendation, that's for sure.
They say to do it, typical is 4 days, 3 nights. But for me, I love to do it over 4 nights, 5 days. That way I can see more.
Yeah. And we did it 5 nights, 6 days.
Yes.
We'll talk about the reasons that we did it that way for sure.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. And the way we did it, and I believe the way anybody has to, well, you can start at either end, but the footpath itself is 61 kilometers, but then there's the extra hike that you have to take into consideration that is actually located in the Fundy National Park. And I believe that's about 9 kilometers worth, is it?
No, that was almost 13 kilometers because they changed that whole trail. That's a whole new trail this year that goes into Goose River. It used to be 9 kilometers in, 9 kilometers out. Now it's 12 point something.
Oh, yes.
And it's probably it's an easy trail.
Yeah, that part of the trail is easy.
Yeah. I remember somebody was very like, wow.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Giggles.
Oh, yeah, well, fun.
It was all fun.
Yeah. Guys, we are actually recording this podcast on Skype. You'll be able to see Barry and I, and we'll probably post it on our blog post if all goes well. I am looking at Barry right now. He's in our office, in our home, and in the background, a beautiful pillow that says "Embrace the Wild" that Mom gave us. Also, our cat, Juliet, is in full grooming mode at the moment. I'm not quite sure if we're not in the video, but yeah, she's just in all her glory there. Fluffers.
Fluffy.
Let's just be thankful that I caught the bra that was hanging on the doorknob there behind you before we got started.
And I took it off.
Yes. Oh, thank goodness. Alrighty, so a lot of people do get that if they're not doing their research before going on this trail, they're like, oh yeah, it's a 61-kilometer trail. Yeah. And they're caught by surprise because they have that extra 12 to 13 kilometers to do. And if you haven't planned that, it can really kick your ass.
Yeah, no, there's been people that, like we met, that they said, oh, it's only like 51 kilometers. I can walk 20 kilometers a day. And they were going to do it in 2 days. And they had to backtrack after the first day because they didn't have enough stuff. They weren't set up.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the technicality of the trail, like sometimes you'll say, oh, it's an advanced trail, but it might not be as technical as some other trails. What I found with the Fundy Footpath is it was highly technical, where if I didn't have my trekking poles, I would have definitely not finished this trail. I was using the poles to help myself get up some of the inclines. Because of the wear and tear it had on my knees, I was constantly using my poles to take on a lot of my weight when we were going down and doing all the switchbacks.
Yeah, and it's like, you're not just a gradual climb. You're like, you're up. You're going straight up.
Yeah, it's high elevation. And they're saying, it's 10,000 feet of elevation, which is correct. That said, it's not 10,000 feet of elevation all the way up. There are so many ups and downs on this trail.
Every there's no flat. Like you're absolutely climbing or you're going down.
Yeah,
you're going
exactly.
up and you're going down.
And some of the parts of the trail are that narrow that you kind of have to go sideways.
Yeah.
You have to position your body sideways, and keeping in mind that you have anywhere from 35 to 40 pounds on your back with all of your gear. So it wears on you.
Yeah.
Definitely wears on you.
At least you didn't leave me on the trail and go home.
What?
At least you didn't leave me on the trail and go home.
I did not leave you on the trail, no. There's one thing that I highly recommend anyone that is going to tackle this trail is to definitely one, prepare, and we'll talk about the preparation, and two is put yourself in a frame of mind and know what to expect, and always expect the worst.
Yeah.
Because if you don't expect the worst, you will not be prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
Both equipment wise and mentally.
Yeah.
Because it can get hard physically, it can get hard mentally, it can be hot, it can be wet, it can be cold, and all of those within hours.
Yeah. No, it could go extreme modes out there.
Yeah.
And, if you're not ready, like it's going to be hard.
Exactly. So, as Barry said, the typical recommendation is 4 days, 3 nights. And there are some recommended spots where you can stop and tent. There are designated camping areas along the trail. There are several. Some people have done it in less. There are people that thrive on doing these types of trails in the shortest amount of time possible. They practically run it, and they're ultra lightweight hikers. They would not be carrying 35 pounds on their backs. I believe the fastest one to date is 18 hours straight.
18 hours and some odd minutes.
Mm.
I've met the guy a couple of times, and
Yeah.
he does. That's what he does. He's those extreme runners through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Like he does those ultra runs all the time.
Yeah.
But he's also been one of the guys that's worked on the trail a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's also very familiar with the trail. I would never run that trail. I would definitely kill myself.
I don't know how they do it.
I don't know either, because of the technicality of the trail. You have to be so aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And Barry's recommendation is 4 nights, 5 days. And we did it in 5 nights, 6 days. So let's talk now a little bit about, our own personal experience doing it as a couple. We chose to do this trail together.
And it's the only second time I've ever hiked it with anybody.
Right.
I've always done it solo.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think I would do this trail solo. I would do some trails solo. I really don't think I would do this one solo. But who knows? Perhaps I would.
Yeah, you can get yourself in trouble sometimes.
You really can, yeah.
Yep.
A few things before we get into our day-to-day that you need to keep in mind when you are doing this trail is the trail. You do need to be very cognizant of the tides. The trail is a coastal trail. So you're running along the coast. You're not walking on the coast most of the times. You are up kind of on the hills or on the cliffs. And typically there are some crossings that are down at the coastal level, and most nights we're sleeping down almost at ground zero, right?
Every night we were.
Yeah.
All the campsites are at the bottom of a climb.
Yeah, exactly. There are a few river crossings.
Yeah, there's 2 major river crossings that you gotta nail on your first day.
Right. So you have to be very aware of what the tides are, when low tide is, and plan your hike around that. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you will get stuck, and it is dangerous. The Bay of Fundy has some of the highest tides in the world, and you do not want to get stuck.
No.
You
And
will
then,
call for help.
and if you miss the first one for your tide, it's not so bad because you have the link, like that skips the tide. It adds
Right, you can go inland a little bit.
Yeah, and adds 2.1 kilometers to your hike. So it takes you through the land. It's a brand new trail that they just finished up this year. Or last summer they finished it up, and it's a lot better than when the very first summer I took it, where it's just you're following ribbons, and it's actually now a really good trail.
Did we do that section?
No, we skipped that, and we walked up the river along the bank.
The river crossing, okay.
Yeah, we did the river crossing.
Oh yes, this was after our first night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We woke up in time and to get that nice river crossing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time I've ever done it.
Oh really? You've usually done the inland?
Yeah, because I've always come across it at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I want to hit the other river one, I had to take the link so I could hit that second one.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about our days that we were on the trail. So we did plan to stay 4 nights.
5 days. We
mm-hmm.
had planned to stay at Goose River or Goose Creek,
Mm-hmm.
Wolf Brook, Little Salmon, and Sealy Beach. So that was our initial goal. That's what I had set up and planned for our trip.
Right, and that was the initial itinerary that we had.
Yeah.
However, we ended up doing Goose River, Goose Creek, Telegraph Brook, Little Salmon, Sealy Beach.
So, yeah.
5 sleeps. We started...
We went out a day early, what we did too, right?
Did we?
We went out on a Saturday.
Okay.
And then, because our plan was to go right from Point Wolf to Goose River.
Mm-hmm.
Or Goose Creek. But we started late, and it just all played it from there.
Yeah, so we started off on an extremely rainy day.
Thunder and lightning
in the morning. We were debating putting it off.
Yeah.
I had a migraine in the morning because of the pressure in the air. And then we decided by early afternoon that we'd actually give it a shot. So Barry's mom drove us from Sussex.
Mario and Andretti.
We probably made it from Sussex to the beginning of the trail in the Fundy National Park in record time. I may have been, we survived it.
White knuckled
drive. Thanks, Mom, for the drive. It was awesome.
Yes. Very appreciative of the drive.
Yeah, definitely. And we got ready. We were packing up our stuff, getting ready to go. I'm going to share our screen here. And for those listening just on the podcast, you're actually not going to see this, but when you do have a chance, you can decide to figure out how to share the screen. You can decide to come check us out on our website, which is eastcoastadventuregeek.com. All of our podcasts are there, and you can view all of the previous episodes.
It's like the little Buddha behind me.
Yes, I know. Juliet the Buddha bear. Juliet the cat. All right, Barry, can you see the screen there?
I can see the screen.
Yeah, awesome. So what I did was open up our little Google Photos album, which is all of our photos from the Fundy Footpath. And, we can't, because most of this is radio, a lot of people will not see the photos. I'm just putting them up on the screen to give us an idea of what we were doing and where we were during our different days. So day 1, we're getting ready, and it's basically pouring rain. My first time. I'm super excited. We got our, oh, we don't even have our rain gear on at first because it was so hot out, right? It was a really hot day.
It's really humid.
What we did this beginning of the July.
Middle of July.
Okay, into 2019. I have a rain cover on my pack.
July 21st to the 26th.
Okay, July 21st to 26th. Yeah, there we go. It was warm and it was wet. But we're all smiley face. We're ready to go, raring to go. We got, hopefully trying to, our first goal, as Barry said, was to get down to Goose Creek.
Goose River.
No, Goose River was our first, was where we stayed. But originally we were going to stay at Goose Creek.
Yeah.
But we ended up staying at Goose River because we had a late start.
Yeah.
So lots of hiking. Oh man, I was excited. I was so excited.
Oh, she was like super pumped, and I'm walking with her, and I'm thinking, oof, like this is like pretty.
I was already
relaxed.
a million photos, and Barry's already done it 5 times before, and he's like, "Oh, this is nothing." I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so beautiful!" Taking pictures of all the books, and I grew up in New Brunswick, but have lived in Prince Edward Island for 24 years now, and you kind of get you forget what the landscape is like, and of course, the Fundy landscape is completely different than what you will see anywhere else in the province.
Oh yeah, it's you've got your trees growing over top of rocks.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Like there's not much that's gonna be just blow your mind when you see it.
And Barry, who was better prepared overall for the rain?
Oh, was it me?
So I had some really good rain gear that I had bought just prior to our hike in preparation, and I think the brand is Marmot, Marmott. I bought the pants and I bought the jacket, super lightweight. And of course, as you can see, if you're viewing the actual video on our website, you'll see that I have a rain cover on my pack. Barry didn't have a rain cover, did you?
No rain cover. I had a rain jacket though.
You did have a rain jacket, but no rain cover on your pack. And because of the amount of rain we had during this hike, definitely your stuff got wet.
My sleeping bag got wet.
Yeah, which is the worst part.
The best part is I got a lot of dry bags. So, my clothes wasn't wet except for what was on me.
Yeah, exactly. And we were wet. Man, it rained.
The thunder and lightning was crazy.
It was crazy. So we did manage to make our way down to Goose Creek, little turn left to head down to the river that was there. The water, absolutely gorgeous. Set up our tent in the rain. Managed to find a little bit of shelter and cooked up some food. And it was so, the rain ended up letting up a little bit right in the evening.
Yeah.
And I don't think we made a fire that night, did we?
Oh, it was just way too wet. We tried. It was like
yeah, we did try, but it was definitely way, way, way too wet. Yeah. Oh, look, we did make a little one here, but it didn't last long. That was about the extent of it. Yeah, for sure. Oh my! Can you hear the sirens behind me, Barry?
I can.
Yeah, I opened the windows because
they're coming to get you.
Yeah, they're coming to get me.
Take you away.
It's so warm in this apartment, so I had to open the windows. So I guess you guys can probably hear that too, all the listeners out there. Yeah, so on our first day, so just moving along, it was super wet. We were somewhat prepared. Some of Barry's stuff got wet. There was absolutely no opportunity to dry anything out at all.
No.
And that first night, early to bed. And the next morning, we got up, and this is where you have to, if you do want to do the river hike along the river, you do have to plan with the tide. Otherwise, we would have had to hike back up, correct? And
Yeah, we
catch
would have
the.
had to hike up another kilometer back up that little hill and
Mhm.
2.1
Yeah,
across.
exactly. Alrighty. So
So
off
that,
for day 2, and on day 2 we were what heading out to Goose Creek.
yep, Goose Creek for the day.
Yeah. So in the morning, every morning I had my hot oatmeal. Definitely
Coffee.
needed to have my coffee.
Let's
With my
just say it was like a 9:30 start, 10 o'clock
yeah,
start.
yeah. Barry was adamant that we get started early, and I was
Finish early.
yeah, start early, finish early. Which, in hindsight, he was absolutely correct that we should have
That
done that.
for me, if I recommend anyone, I would start between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. And that
Mm,
way, like if you do like a 10, 12 kilometer day, you're 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, get into your campsite, get set up, or even on your shorter days, you're noon getting to your spot. And that way you have time to explore. You can watch the tide come in and you can watch the tide go out. It's pretty amazing to do that, like on that level.
yeah, agreed. Should I ever do the Fundy Footpath again, we will definitely be making some early morning wake ups
Yeah,
and getting on the trail early. That's for sure.
all week, yeah.
All week. So,
Hiking all week, yeah.
oh, you're going to wake me. Oh, wake me up. Yes. Make sure that I'm ready to roll. You'll have to have
Yeah.
me up at like 5 a.m. so that I can have my coffee and my oatmeal.
Yeah.
All right, so we do our hike on day 2. Again, it's hot, it's humid, it's rainy. We're ready to roll, and we made our way out to Goose Creek that night.
Yeah.
And what are some of the experiences we had that day, Barry? So we did bump into some people. Actually, you're saying that on this particular hike, you've never bumped into this many people before.
Yeah. Usually when I do the hike through the week, I might run into like at the end of my hike or at the beginning of my hike, maybe 4 people like
Hmm.
on either end. So maybe 8 people in general. But like our first day we saw like 8 people.
Yeah.
Like which blew me away because I was thinking, oh yeah, we won't see anybody the rest of the time, but we saw quite a few people. Probably
And
like 30.
yeah, I'd say probably around 30 people total
Yeah.
in this entire hike that we did. And we did end up meeting up with a few people on our second night when we got to Goose Creek. And Goose Creek is where this is where you have to plan your tide crossing.
Yeah.
There's no choice. You have to plan your tide crossing for Goose Creek. You need to be there for low tide so that you can cross. And as we're approaching, uh, Goose Creek, we were going to take a small break before crossing the river, and there were some people there, and it looked like they were about ready to set up
Set
camp.
up.
But it really was not a designated camp area. But they'd obviously
They hit a wall.
they'd hit their wall at that point, and they were unaware that the campsite was literally just across the river.
Yeah. They thought it was quite a ways away. The thing about that, like they were at a spot where there was no place to set up safe. Like there was no good spot.
Yeah, no shelter, no nothing. It would have been definitely cold. And so we sat down, started chatting with them, where they're from, and their experience hiking. This little conversations that you have with people that you meet up on the trail. And it just so happened that they thought that they could do the entire trail in 2 nights, 3 days, right?
No, no, 2 days. One night, 2 days.
1 night, 2 days.
Yeah, they thought where it was only 51 kilometers that they could hike 25 kilometers or walk 25 kilometers each
Of
day
course.
and do it.
Yeah, so we asked them what their experience hiking was. It didn't appear that they had a whole lot of gear with them, and ends up that you know the explanation was that they walked a lot.
Yeah.
Their experience hiking was next to none, and because they walked a lot, people said, "Oh, you'd be able to, you
do
should
it.
be able to do it in this amount of time." And obviously, they did not do the proper research in that. So they didn't have a tent. They didn't. They had
had
hammocks,
hammocks,
and
and
they
they
weren't
never.
the proper hammocks to use when you're doing your extended hikes this way.
Yeah, they didn't have the bivy sacks, or they didn't have the liners. They were like I remember thinking that night, those two must be freezing.
Yeah. So we managed to convince them to pack up and cross and come into the area where we tented, and we helped them we all got a fire going together, and it
They had
poured
supper
rain
together.
that night. Yeah, we had supper together. We had a nice chat with them. Really nice people, super nice people, highly unprepared. All night I kept waking up because it was cold. It was
And
rain.
rain.
It was wet, and there they were, under some heavy pine trees. They were covered, but not that well covered,
Oh,
and sleeping in these hammocks that had no insulation whatsoever. Anyways, all that to say, they were up and gone probably
before we were.
before we even got up in the morning, and they had decided the night before that they would be turning around and going back.
Yeah, which was probably the best thing.
Definitely the best decision they could make. And that's just a prime example right there about how unforgiving this trail is. If you are not prepared, you will suffer for it. And Barry, you can attest to this. You've had some experiences where you've been hurt on the trail.
Yeah, I fell one day. I was beach camping, and a tropical storm flew through and picked up my tent and uprooted me. So I just packed up, and I was going to go stay at Wolf Brook, and then going into Wolf Brook, I slipped and fell, and a tree caught me right underneath the armpit. I dislocated my shoulder, tore my rotator cuff.
So how many days into your hike were you here?
I was
happened?
going into my third day.
Okay. And you ended up hiking out?
Hiking out.
Sleep that night?
No, I hiked out that day.
You hiked out that day. So how many kilometers did you hike out with a dislocated shoulder?
25.
Oh my God. That's absolutely insane.
Took me 12 hours.
Yeah. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, some people have had to call search and rescue to rescue them off the trail.
There's 1 year I was coming from the St. Martin's Way coming in, that search and rescue had to take 2 guys off a cliff with the helicopters.
Oh, when you were there?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
There's been times when guys had to come off because of blisters and toenails and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy trail, and research your gear, like your backpack, your shoes, your socks, even your socks, right down to your underwear. Like you got to have stuff that's going to be comfortable the whole time.
Definitely, and we'll be talking about gear after. I'm just sifting through our photos here, looking at Goose Creek, where we did stay that second night with those 2 people that were going to turn around. Just reminding me in the photos that there's so many items that you can be found in that area, and they used to. What is it that they used to do there?
It was the copper mill or copper mine.
Okay, there's a big kiln here, and there's some bricks and some gears, some cogwheels, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
That we ended up finding. So that pretty much took us on to day 2, and then day 3, heading out of Goose Creek.
That was a hard day.
Yeah, day 3 was the ass kicker, and that is what pretty much helped us decide that we were either going to get off the trail or extend our hike.
Yeah. I remember I was hiking and we were in this one section. I think we just finished our climb out, and it was like I was thinking, so how are we going to make it? Like we've got one out coming up. How much food if we do an extra day? Then I started asking questions.
My knees were shot at this point. Yeah. And luckily enough, our first aid kit had some good straps, so I was able to strap up my knees. I was able to tape up my feet. I was starting to get blisters, even though I had really good hiking boots. We were tired, and I think what was the worst is we were wet.
Yeah. 3 days of being wet.
For 3 days, we were soaking wet.
I don't think at this point I had any dry clothes left.
And hot during the day and humid, and then at night cold. We were tired. We were definitely tired. And did that end up being a fairly short hike that day?
Yeah.
And we
probably about a 6-kilometer hike, and it was probably the hardest 6 kilometers we did.
Oh, definitely the hardest 6 kilometers we did. Like, guys, you think, 6 kilometers, like, what the hell, 6 kilometers? But honest to goodness, this trail is so unforgiving. It is crazy. And 6 kilometers, you can take a walk in 6 kilometers. I just went for a walk today, and I walked 7 kilometers in an hour. There was no way we did 7 kilometers in an hour.
No, it was a 7-hour day.
It was a 7-hour day.
We were doing a kilometer. We had I can't remember if we started late that day, but we were passed by these guys. A couple people.
Yeah, we were passed by some people. We were definitely struggling, and so we decided that we were going to stay. We decided we were going to extend our hike. I'm not one to give up easy, so decided we were going to extend our hike, and we were going to stay at Telegraph Brook that night, which was not on our initial stop list.
No. For me, it was Telegraph was going to be our spot for lunch, and we didn't arrive there till 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, Telegraph ended up being our sleep place, and what a gorgeous place, guys! It is the most unique spot. It's in a little cove. You're surrounded by high cliffs. There's a waterfall behind you, a river, a little brook running alongside of you, and then you hear the waves crashing in from the bay. You're surrounded by water. So you hear the sound of the waterfall, you hear the sound of the brook, and you hear the sound of the waves. And you're tented pretty much on the beach or a little bit further back. Yeah. Make sure that you're away from any tidal waters, of course.
We were about 15 feet from where high tide comes in.
Yeah. And this is the night where we were actually, looking at the pictures here, we were actually able to find some dry rocks, lay out our stuff. I made the most amazing campfire that night. Do you remember that campfire, Barry?
Yes, that was good campfire.
Yeah, that was a fantastic campfire, and I think we were really pleased with our decision to
stay there.
Yeah, to stay there and extend our hike and call it a day, and basically just set up and eat and rest. We needed the rest more than anything.
Yeah, because I know there was at one point on the hike. I was hungry, and I just, right in the middle of the trail, I just stopped, threw my pack off, and said, I need to stop, or I'm done.
Yeah, you're done. You just threw your pack, and I'm like, is everything okay? And we all had our moments, between the two of us. We definitely had our moments. But as mentioned earlier, when we first started off this podcast, is you do need to be mentally prepared to go on this hike.
Yeah.
And you need to be physically prepared to be on this hike, and equally important for both of those.
To me, it's more of a...
We did really good, we didn't nobody bit the other person's head off, even though we were tired and hungry and hot and cold. We did that way. Agreed?
Agreed. It was a beautiful spot.
Yeah, it really was beautiful.
Yeah,
and
it
was what?
It's probably for me like the mental side of it is more important than the physical. You need the physical, but your mental strength needs to be just as strong, if not stronger, than your physical.
Absolutely.
Because it wears you down.
Oh, it does wear you down. It's easy to just throw everything down and say, okay, I quit.
Yeah.
I quit.
Because it's a constant climb or a constant going down.
Yeah, for sure. And that takes us into day 4, where we're leaving Telegraph. And as we're leaving Telegraph, I'm like, all right, we're gung ho. We're just like, okay, we had a good rest. We're ready to roll. Like, let's do this. We're gonna, we're halfway through our hike at this point, and we're like, okay, let's keep going. And Barry, who has now done it 5 times before, didn't have the heart to tell me what kind of hike out of Telegraph Brook we would have. Oh my God. So guys, if you can picture this, I was tracking everything on my watch and on my All Trails app on my phone, and we did 1 kilometer up, 1 kilometer up, and that 1 kilometer took us close to an hour to climb. More than half of the time going up that climb, I was using my trekking poles to help me go up that incline. It was ridiculous.
It was
a lot better after that, but like that was just like, okay. Okay. Do I really want to keep doing this? I can guess at that point.
Yeah, that's a hard climb. There's no way around it. Like, it's either you go straight up. There's no way to put a switchback in that. It was it's hand over fist.
Yeah, definitely a big hike out. And then I'd say the rest of the hike that day was pretty decent, other than we ended up to the end of it, where we were coming into Little Salmon. And when you come into Little Salmon, Barry's like, oh yeah, just about like 5 minutes, we're going to be down there. And so we start going down, and it is switchback after switchback after switchback, which means, for anyone that's not familiar with hiking, instead of going straight down, you're basically weaving back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, right? So, until you eventually reach the bottom. So what could potentially be 1 kilometer, if you went straight down, might be 3 kilometers because of the number of switchbacks you've done.
Yeah.
And the descent into Little Salmon was intense. It was a big climb down, so many switchbacks. So grateful I had my trekking poles. If you are going to do this hike, I would highly recommend having good trekking poles. My knees at this point strapped up all to heck. I'll put some pictures in our blog post of my knees strapped up and swollen. The weight, or I was able to put most of my weight into my poles, and because of the pain I was experiencing in my knees, it was really slowing us down. I was totally slowing us down because of the pain I had in my knees at this point.
On a
good day, I would have definitely done it in a third of the time of that, but the pain was definitely holding me back. But the arrival into Little Salmon is absolutely gorgeous. This entire hike is gorgeous, and every part has its like very unique details that are just breathtaking. And for Little Salmon, it's actually it's a
sanctuary.
It's a sanctuary, right? Thank you. I couldn't remember the name, and it's in a valley. There is zero cell phone reception. Zero cell phone reception. You will get some cell phone reception throughout the trail, depending where you are. Here, none. Absolutely zero. You are definitely in the middle of nowhere. No access to anyone, anything, and it is beautiful. We had an absolutely gorgeous campsite, built the best campfire probably of the entire trip.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, and we had great choice of the campsite that we wanted. We picked one that had a beautiful, somebody had put together a whole bunch of rocks, made a little a fireplace, and made a beautiful campfire. And I could have easily stayed in that location a couple of nights, and I would definitely go back to Little Salmon.
Oh yeah,
in a heartbeat.
I'd recommend anybody like try to get there early in the day and then go up and see the Eye of the Needle.
Right, and that because we extended our hike and we didn't have time to do that, we didn't go to the Eye of the Needle, but I definitely want to do a hike in with you, like a section hike, and definitely go see the Eye of the Needle.
And just spend a night at Little Salmon.
Oh yeah,
do.
Yeah, a couple nights even. Just make a trip of just doing that.
Because there's so much to see. When the tide goes out, like there's a actual boardwalk, an old boardwalk where the ships used to come in and pick up stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there used to be like there's an old kiln. I remember me showing you the old kiln where they did the bricks and stuff.
Yep.
There's a lot there to see.
If anyone is viewing the actual video that I'm going to put up on our website here, there's a picture of a toilet, an outhouse. So in the campsites, in the designated campsites, there are outhouses. So that's a really good thing to know. However, when you're coming into Little Salmon and you're this trek down that I was just talking about where you're doing switchback after switchback, when you reach the bottom of this descent, you are faced with an outhouse with no door that is basically facing you. And should there happen to be anyone on the John, you are going to get a full-on view of what's going on in that moment. I'm not really sure if anyone's using that toilet or not. There's obviously other ones on the camp site, but it's definitely something funny, and I'm not sure if initially the exit to that path was there or not, but the placement of that toilet is definitely not well thought out.
No, not at all.
And I believe if you go on a lot of the Facebook groups or any of the groups that talk about the trail, a lot of people will make fun of that for sure.
Yeah, like that. There's 3 campsites there, and I think there's 3 privy bathrooms like that.
Okay. Like 3 campsites, you mean like 3 areas for camp?
3 areas, yeah.
Yeah, because
there's the one that we stayed at, and then there's that big one that we come into.
Yep.
And then across where Dustin Brook is, like where the Dustin Brook sign is, where I'm walking up. You see where I'm walking up?
Yeah.
There's another campsite on that side.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely beautiful. And this was kind of our turnaround where like, oh, the weather started getting better.
Yeah.
We were able to dry things out. It was a beautiful night, and awesome campfire. And guys, I tried to take my very expensive hiking socks. So how much do we pay for those hiking socks? Like $20 or more, Barry?
Yeah, 20-ish, 27.
Yeah, between $20 and $30 for a good pair of Darn Tough. That's the brand, the Darn Tough socks. And here I am, and they're guaranteed for life, guys, except for when you burn them. So I decided I was going to place my socks on the rocks. The rocks were hot. Try to dry out some of my good socks. And I said to Barry, I'm just going to be gone for a couple minutes. I'm going to go use the bathroom. And I came back, and my socks were on fire.
Shit happens.
Oh my God. Anyways, the toe was burnt out of one of my socks. And I did email darn tough, I'm like, so a friend of mine, quote unquote, a friend of mine may have burnt toe out of their sock. Does your lifetime warranty cover this? and of course, no. So that is not covered under the wear and tear category of the warranty. And anyways, we've had a good laugh about it, and I did hold on to the socks for quite a while, but they've just recently made their way into the so it was really a wonderful stay, and I found that was on a positive side, it's kind of the turnaround point of our hike.
That whole day was like that night with that campfire, that campsite, that turned the whole hike around. It was like we went from being wet to dry.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next day, good breakfast, head out. And this was our day. We were heading out to our last night.
That's right.
And just knowing that we were heading to our energized me. I was ready to roll. And one part of this hike that was hard, I'm just looking at the pictures here. This is where all those stairs start coming in.
Yeah, this is where we're at, Cradlebrook. We had a really nice stop at Cradlebrook. That was I hate those stairs.
And there was a lot of those stairs along this part of the hike. Basically, guys, they're not really real stairs. There's what do you call them? Like
ladder stairs.
Ladder stairs, right? So there's like this. What do you call this here? The
cable and the 4x4.
Yeah, cables. So there's cables and 4x4s, and you're basically just climbing that because it's too dangerous. Your footing is too dangerous underneath. So they've decided to put these ladder stairs in to help you get up or down.
Yeah, because there's nowhere to put the switchbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's eight sets of stairs between Cradlebrook and Sealy Beach.
Yeah, there was quite a few, definitely. Yeah. We were counting them as we were going. And finally, we make our way to Sealy Beach. And Barry attempted to record me. So Barry's done this hike many times before, and he has done it once going from St. Martin's all the way to Fundy National Park, but his preferred route is to do it the way that we've done it.
The reason why is and I made Kay go first, and I wanted her to walk out. To me, I stayed up top, and I let her go all the way down and walk out to sea. You can see a little bit of what you've done, and it blows you away.
Right. So just like we were mentioning earlier, every night when you're tenting, you're pretty much coming down to ground zero at the shore level. And so we had this long hike coming down into Sealy Beach. And Barry said, okay, I want you to come in first. And we have camera equipment, our GoPros, all of this stuff. And he's like, I want to see your reaction when you get onto the beach, because you're going to see, he didn't specifically tell me, but he said, when you get down, I want you to look left. And, God, I just think right now and I want to cry. Like, it brings tears to my eyes. But it was such an accomplishment for me to be able to physically and mentally go through that entire hike that we just did. And you get down, and guys, I will post some of these pictures on our page for this particular episode at eastcoastadventuregeek.com. But you get to see when you turn left, not all, some of what you've just hiked. And at the very tip of the photo that I'll post, you see Martin Head. Is that correct, Barry?
Yeah, you see Martin Head.
And Martin Head was what, about the halfway point?
No. Um, yeah, it would be pretty close. Like
Yeah.
I think Point or Wolf Brook is I think is the halfway mark
Okay.
because and then I can't remember. Yeah, no, Point Wolf's halfway because that I had 25 kilometers that day that I hiked out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no.
And awesome. And then we had an awesome time. So um, we hiked into Sealy Beach. And all that whole day, Barry was talking about how, he was starting to crave his chips and his Coca-Cola, and he wanted to eat this and wanted to eat that. And on a few of our spots, I actually had access to the internet, and Barry's sister was chatting with me and wondering how our hike was going and wondering where we were going to be staying that night. And I just happened to say, "Oh my God, Barry is craving chips and all of these things,
Chips and dip and
chips
beer.
and dip and beer, a good
Good
craft
Coke.
beer, and some Coca-Cola." And anyways, that was the end of that. Never really heard back from her, so we're setting up our tent and took a rest. It was a beautiful, gorgeous, hot, sunny day. And next thing we see this girl, Alicia, making her way down to the beach with her husband, Ryan, and they had a small cooler with them. There's an easy hike down into Sealy Beach
Yeah, from the Parkway.
from the
Parking lot
parkway.
15.
Okay. And you can make your way down into Sealy Beach. And here they arrive, big smiles on their faces. They had worked all day.
Yep.
And came down, had their hiking poles, and they had some craft beer, some Coca-Cola, some chips. Barry cried.
I don't know about cry, but I was
You were pretty damn
emotional.
close. You were pretty damn close to crying. And oh my goodness, it was the funniest thing ever. And it was so wonderful. And for those of you that are not into hiking yet or anything like that, this is what you would call trail magic. And where people just come and they leave stuff for hikers or they bring stuff to hikers. And this was like probably one of the nicest things anybody has ever done. It was just like the coolest thing. And they had to get back to their kids. So we basically had a beer. I don't drink beers, so I had I forget what they brought me. Ginger ale or
Ginger
something.
ale or root beer.
Ginger ale. Yeah, I had the ginger ale. And then we had our snacks and a nice chat, and off they went. They might have been there for an hour, and it was like the thing ever. Oh yeah, there's the picture. So you had
We had
uh,
pucker up.
the Garrison pucker up from Garrison Brewery. Oh yeah, I had
Top
my
notch
chips,
beer.
Coca-Cola. Oh, A&W root beer. That's what I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. We slept. Beautiful sky that night. And
We
it
had
was,
the best campfire that night.
yeah, aside from Little Salmon, definitely an amazing campfire.
Yeah.
The most wonderful thing about Sealy Beach is the sunrise, which is why Barry loves keeping this as the just shows you and gives you appreciation of everything and all the hard work that you've done. And we chose to wake up at sunrise, made our coffee, sat, took some beautiful pictures of the sunrise, and just really appreciated what Mother Nature has put there for us, and what so many people don't get to see. It was such an amazing experience. Thank Bear.
It was amazing. Like to me, that was probably my favorite part of the hike. Like I love the whole thing, but to
Mm-hmm.
me, that morning to get up with you and share that sunrise. You know, like we had shitty weather, and
Yeah.
that
Oh,
day
yeah.
we
We
had
got shitty
the
weather.
best weather of our whole time out there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It made it all worth it.
Yeah,
So we get up the next day, we saw our sunrise, got everything packed up, and we knew that our last day was going to be an easy hike. Definitely the easiest part of the hike the whole time.
yeah.
We made our way into, is it Long Beach?
Long Beach
Long Beach. We got rid of all our garbage
in garbage cans.
in garbage cans. Yes, thank you, Barry.
We just didn't throw it on the beach.
No, we would never do that.
No,
Yeah, we carried all our garbage out with us. Whatever, anyone that's new to this, whatever you take in is what you take out. You don't leave any garbage behind. There are some bare boxes, which we'll talk about after on some of these spots. Anyways, we make our way out and finally reach the end of our hike. And
yeah,
there's a suspension bridge that you have to cross to get into the interpretation center.
and it was very nice.
Once you reach there, you know that you have made it. You know that you've made it to the end. And Barry was nice to not shake the bridge while I was crossing it.
As much as I wanted to.
Yeah, for sure. So it was, for me, um, the best experience I've ever had hiking, that's for sure. As physically demanding as it was, we ended up, finishing it one day longer than we expected, but it totally made it worth it. Stopped in at the interpretation center at the end. I bought my Fundy Footpath badge to say that I actually finished it, and
And
you have
and
yours.
that supports the Fundy Footpath. It helps maintain the trail.
Right, exactly. So the funds go towards that. And then we made our way into St. Martin's, had a trail burger, had some real food.
Oh yeah.
We just devoured that. And then we ended up having to drive all the way
Then
back.
we stopped at this real cool place. If you guys ever get a chance, stop at Red Rock Adventure. They have a little cafe, little coffee shop, and these guys are top shelf. You know, like they know their stuff around the area.
Yeah, for sure. So they do in St. Martin's there, they do kayak
They do a
rental,
lot of,
have all kinds of outdoor things that they
yeah.
do. Um, do they also do the hiking?
Yep, they do the hiking for you. Like they'll bring people pay them to take them on the footpath.
Right. So they
Whether it's
like carry
sections of it.
gear. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll hike in the tents and the food. They're set up like
Right. Yeah.
big time. Like when they hike, they only carry a little bit on their back, and the rest is hiked up by a couple guys or
Yeah.
girls or whoever.
Yeah, so the people organizing it. So for anyone out there that doesn't want to do the full-on experience of carrying 35 pounds and your tent and everything, there are services out there where you can just hike it and people will bring your gear and food and prepare your food and everything for you to do that. And of course, it comes at a pretty price, but totally worth it for
It's a
sure.
premium adventure.
Yeah, definitely a premium adventure. Oh my goodness. So that pretty much covers the actual
Hike.
hike that we did. And it was quite an adventure. And I have to say that, even though, Barry, we did this last year, I think this is the first time we've actually sat down and
Talked about it.
talked about the whole thing from
Yeah.
start to finish. And I think I was saying as we were preparing this yesterday, I don't think I cried once on that whole trail other than, and you said, oh, yeah, you did when you walked into Sealy Beach. I'm like, yes, but that was out of exhilaration and just a complete awe of what Mother Nature had in front of me
Yeah.
and the actual hike that I had actually just completed. And
Gummy
No,
bears.
yeah. Well, and
The gummy bears.
talk about when we talk about food. But yeah, it was an absolutely amazing hike, and I couldn't have chosen a better person, obviously, to do it with than you, especially, one, you're my partner, and two, you definitely had experience doing the hike, and having someone experienced with me definitely made a huge difference in being able to complete this hike. Without that, I would have definitely had to hike out at one point. I would have had to find an exit
You
and
know,
do an exit of the trail.
for me, like we say we extended our hike an extra day but for me, the way I take it is that we hiked our hike. We were supposed to do it that way, and that's totally loved our adventure together.
And
It was amazing.
perhaps it would have taken us a shorter period of time, but both of us really love to take the time to appreciate what's around us, take a look at the sights, and of course I love photography, and I took a lot of photos, a lot of quick stops to take pictures here and there, and you were very patient with me to let
But
me do that. Yeah, but it was
I
good.
love that thing
Yeah.
though. I love, to me, like it's not about how fast I can get from campsite to campsite. It's yes, I may start off early, but the reason why I started off early is so I can have my time to explore.
Yeah.
Like we did a little bit of exploring, but like Little Salmon, there's so much to see there, and there's so much to see at Goose Creek. Like there's like we walked around there, and it's amazing.
And there's definitely things that we missed, which is why I would love to section hike it sometime.
I'm hoping this summer that we can like go to New Brunswick, and we'll hike into Little Salmon for a weekend.
Hopefully, if COVID-19 can take a break for a while. I know right now there's zero active cases in New Brunswick, where I am at the moment. And I believe maybe 2 active cases, 3 on PEI.
I do believe.
Hopefully, at some point, we can at least open up the borders between PEI and New Brunswick. A lot of people are hoping for that, but the powers that be will let us know.
Yeah, and for me, like I want to do it, but I want to do it safely. Like for me, this COVID-19 is real. It's a thing that's could affect me big time.
Of course, you have asthma.
Yeah.
Could definitely affect you, and it can affect so many people around us, that we don't even realize. So we have to take extra caution, which is why when I return to PEI, I will actually be quarantining, which are the current rules. What are you playing with there, Bear? I can hear all the sound
Armrest
on your chair. When I return to PEI, I need to quarantine for 2 weeks. So obviously, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, I am in New Brunswick right now to help care for my dad, who has terminal cancer. And when I do choose to go back to PEI with Barry and my son and his girlfriend, and who all live in our home, I do need to quarantine myself away from them for 2 weeks before I can even see them. And that's the current rule. We're currently trying to figure out a way where I can have perhaps a camper in our yard, hook up the electricity and the water, and I'll quarantine there for 2 weeks. And Barry's an essential worker. Nick's girlfriend is an essential worker. I don't want them to be taken away from being able to do that. So we're doing what we got to do, babe.
That's right.
Doing what we got to do. I think we're going to call it a night or a day on this part of our podcast, and we're going to end up doing a part 2. We've already been going over an hour on what our actual hike was like personally. And on our next episode, Barry, I think we'll go over gear.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about gear, what you will need to properly do the Fundy Footpath, talk about our food, and we're also going to talk about, a couple of items that we looked at was what is it that you didn't bring that you would bring next time? What did you bring that you would not bring next time? And what would you still bring that your partner said that you shouldn't? And then we'll probably talk about our two, I'm thinking maybe each of our two personal favorite parts of that hike. And then call it a day on the Fundy Footpath for our own personal experience on it, and then eventually have someone else on. So let's call it a day.
Oh, cool.
It was nice seeing you.
It was beautiful. Awesome seeing you.
I'll see you again tonight.
I
And
like your smile.
yeah, more video chats for us beyond this podcast. And I hope everyone is staying safe out there, doing the right things, following the science, and making sure that at some point we can all get out and travel and explore even more than what we're able to do right now. Hope everyone has a good day. And here comes our outro music.